Welcome back to another episode of the House Husband Diaries. As always, I am your host, Carter C. And I got a little bit of this quarantine hair going on, but you know what? We are going to fight through and bring you another episode of Forrest Fenn content. So, today's episode, we're going to talk about clarifications where Forrest says things like, "Oh, I don't mean," or "what I mean," or I didn't know what that meant. So we're just trying to kind of look at that word, and then I'm throwing in a little the couple mentions of trick or tricks, kind of like hints, sort of, and then some besides. So I've got a lot of quotes today, so I'm gonna get right to it. Page 6, right at the beginning. Well, I'm almost 80, and I think that's so funny. Oh, I don't mean it's funny because I'm almost 80, but it's funny because I said it that way. And then down at the bottom he says, "Oh, I don't mean he was funny," talking about Eric Sloan. "Oh, I don't mean he was funny because he said he was going to die, but funny because he had all of that figured out." So I think Smell the Sunshine said it best as he looked at the literary, that's his kind of forte, is looking at the literary uses or whatever, what have you. So I don't know that there's anything there, but I think it's interesting as we move forward that he continues to clarify, saying, "Oh, I don't mean that, I mean this," and so there might be something there, but I don't know in this first page if it's more just setting the stage or if there's if there's a there. You know what I mean? Know what I'm saying? I don't know if y'all can hear that. I don't think you can hear that. I don't think this mic's picking it up, but it may pick up some thunder. But it's we just apparently are having a massive storm. It just started pouring outside, and if I can hear it through these headphones. Whew. All right, page 13. 3 instances. He even about halfway down in important literature. He even had a sister like mine, the guy in the story, I mean, not JD. And it was so funny, and I mean really funny, because I always thought I'd write that book myself. And then he says, down at the bottom of that paragraph, just because Napoleon said that history was nothing more than fables agreed upon doesn't mean it's true. It's true. So there's a lot of clarifications going on. I mean, and like I said, and I think it was the last video or 2 videos ago, I need to look at Catcher in the Rye again just because it does play an important role in important literature and possibly throughout some of the early chapters as well. So maybe that's just, there's nothing there because it's just a copycat sort of thing where it's just sort of, I can just write like that. And then he gets bored and we get into the meat and potatoes and everybody's looking for hints and clues early on. When you open up the thrill of the chase, your mind is just like, okay, I'm going to find the treasure chest. I'm going to find these subtle hints in the book, and then I'm going to go straight to the point, and I'm going to figure it out. It's like everybody's a sprinter, but this is a marathon. And so what's really hard is to keep that mental acuity, that sharpness all the way through when you're reading all these chapters. So I would encourage everyone to, when you pick up the book, start in the middle, start at the end, start at a chapter somewhere else, Bessie and Me, or Buffalo Cowboys, or somewhere else, Father on the Banco. Just start, and then when you're ready to go, so that your mind's sharp and you're looking for stuff that maybe if you read it all the way through, or you read 30 or 40 pages in a night or something, you may not be picking up some of the same things because you're just kind of going through the motions. Now you're just reading. But I think the first 15, 20 pages of this book have been picked apart by so many people, and so many people are saying, "Oh my God, this is so important. It's at the beginning. This is where it's at." And I just think, Forrest would have known that. And so if you're going to hide subtle hints in your book, you're probably not going to put them in the first few pages. You might put one, I'm not, I wouldn't say he didn't put any, but I would imagine that they're sprinkled throughout, as it says. And so I don't know that important literature is any more important than another chapter. Okay, page 14. He says, it's actually the bottom of 13 and then goes to the top of 14. The story was about this poet in Baghdad who was always picking some guy's pocket, and he was in trouble most of the time. The pickpocket guy, I mean. And then down at the beginning of the last paragraph. So I started to figure things out. Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge, and I had a lot of that. Imagination, I mean. I think this is the part for me. The imagination is more important than knowledge. And Forrest says I have a lot of imagination. And so what I don't see from other solves and from other searchers, a lot of, I see it some, but I don't see a lot of imagination. Where warm waters halt, it's the clues are straightforward. But straightforward doesn't mean that you don't use imagination. They're straightforward in a different way. And I think, I received an email and somebody said, hey, what about this riddle? And we were thinking about riddles because Forrest says you got to solve the riddle in my poem. And one of the things about riddles is that it asks very straightforward questions, but they're in a different frame of mind, basically. So you read something, you go, oh, this is what it's asking, or this is the riddle, but it's a totally different, straightforward answer. And so I wonder how much imagination we need to use. And I think we need to use a fair amount. And I think once you think of that and you think that imagination, I think the clues are very straightforward in that line of thought, if that makes sense. Probably not earth-shattering, groundbreaking information, but there you go. That's why you tune in, isn't it? Yeah. Page 16. At the bottom, it was really bad language, and it ticked off my father pretty good when he heard her say some of those things to her kid. It was really bad. And then over on the next page, 17, my dad stopped liking her when she said that he was nothing but a cheap one-pony show. I never knew what that meant, but it must have been really bad because it made my father mad. So his father was ticked off and really mad in first grade. And I'm going to look at all of the people in The Thrill of the Chase. So, Mr. Fenn, Mrs. Fenn, the father, mother, Skippy, June, and Frosty. I've already looked at the old ladies and the biddies and stuff. And so I'm gonna look at them in a future video in a couple weeks. That'll come out. But it's really interesting here now that I'm kind of in that frame of mind for future research. Just noticing that father is mad in this. I don't know if that means anything. Clarification, you know what I mean? So I always thought the saying too was, you're a cheap one-trick pony. You're a cheap one-trick pony? Anyway, we'll look up sayings after that. Sometime in May or June. Page 25. We got lots of quotes. Might have to make this a two-part series. I just want to get through it. Page 25. Page 25. Let's see here. Oh yeah, bottom of 24. About that time, my father gave me a look, and I mean really a look. Now, that's the second time, and I haven't noticed this until just now, but that's the second time in, it's nine pages apart, but he says, I mean really, and the really goes in italics. Really a look. Really bad language. and I mean really. Just literary, just using his, he's free. And then he says, I was sure a window pane somewhere in Mississippi was about to break. Going back to windows, you know, it's right there. I mean, really. A look in the window. Windows. All right, page 26. Keep them doggers rolling, rolling. Top of page 26. Was praying thanks to Thor because he was holding my hand and smiling. My father, I mean. You know, it doesn't really, to me, it's just a play. I'm gonna have to go back and look at Catcher in the Rye. So maybe all of this is just, it's just he's copying Catcher in the Rye, because it just seems like a lot of either filler sentences. So I've talked about maybe subtle hints are if you use a literary device, if you use the same words over and over, people just become immune to them. You know, it's just sort of, it just, everything seems the same. And so it's sort of just kind of, it's very subtle. The term I want to use is innocuous, but, you know, it just slides it right in, because how do you know when there's, you know, 7 or 10 different uses of this word, or 52 uses of this word, which one is the actual subtle hint? Or, you know, if there's 5 of them and 1 or 2 are actual hints, maybe not 52, but, you know. So page 26, we got that one. Move over to 27. We've got 2 on this page. And he says, fortunately, I was the only one in the class who knew that trick. And this is where, when I was doing this, I added trick just because I thought tricks, you know, it's an interesting word. What is that trick? Maybe you get through the second clue, or you get through the 4th clue, and you're 200 feet from the treasure chest, but then people keep walking right on past the treasure chest. Do we need to know what that trick is? Hop out the window, slide down the fire escape, we're right there. You know what I mean? So fortunately, I was the only one in the class who knew that trick. The sliding, I mean. So did Forrest slide? When he was asked, was walking the only mode of transportation? Maybe he slid. Maybe there was a little slide that he, you know, and most people wouldn't think that a 79 or 80-year-old would maybe do a little sliding and say, no. I mean, it's not a big one. I'm not saying he slid like 40 feet or anything, but maybe you get off the you get off the trail a little bit, you know, and maybe you need to slide down, you know, 4 or 5 feet, 6, 7 feet. Nothing major. And don't ask me how you crawl back up it. I don't know, but I'm just positing here. I'm trying to think outside the box, within the box. The sliding, I mean. And even though that rusty old iron thing marked the tail of my britches pretty good with a heavy brown color, it was worth it. And this is the same thing. I'll go back through brown too, but I wonder if there's another key word that's in the poem, and then if you just look right back up in the sentence, everybody's looking at the heavy brown. Okay, the brown, maybe it's this thing. Well, maybe it's this little trick, the sliding, I mean, and that's the subtle hint, and everybody's looking at the end of the sentence because that's where some of the main key words to the poem are. Then he says, to Miss Ford, out the window meant out of sight, where I couldn't cause her any trouble. Out the window meant out of sight. I don't think there's anything with the meant, but it is there, so I wanted to cover my bases. Page 32. My Spanish Toy Factory. Talking about making yo-yos, right? And he says, for those wooden beauties, I could get a quarter. And that meant 2 bags of Fritos, a Coke, and a small ice cream, leaving me a nickel as a head start for the next day. And I just think, you know, that meant, hey, I don't know, maybe there's something there about getting a head start, you know? Wooden beauties. If you've been braving in the wood. Page 40. My father never knew what the word bluff meant, so he'd just sit there and give Skippy about 5 seconds of additional parole time. I love this one because he says my father never knew what the word bluff meant. Now, bluff can mean I'm faking. I'm, Bluff for poker, a little K-Pro reference there. And Cal and all those of you who like World Series of Fenn. Maybe I'll try to get out there next year. But bluff can also mean like a lookout. It can mean other things. And so I'll look at that later on, probably in the father, episode when I talk about family. But I've always wondered if that's a subtle hint because his father never knew. And, maybe that's a subtle hint to say, hey, there's a bluff somewhere. I have to look at the definition of bluff. Is that higher than a cliff? Is it, not as high as a cliff? Could you slide down a small bluff? Page 45, In Love with Yellowstone. My dad had the summers off, being in the school business, so that meant for 3 months I didn't have to worry about taking a test or having to please Miss Ford. So that meant, I don't think there's anything there really. Page 47, the Totem Cafe caper. He's getting fired. He said, "You're canned." I didn't really know what canned meant, but guessed it must be something good because he was such a nice guy. And then he says, one sentence later, "It killed me for sure, getting fired, I mean. And all of a sudden, I saw my stupid ex-boss for what he really was." Okay, it killed me for sure, getting fired, I mean. Yeah, like why do you clarify that? Is it just carrying on that same, I don't know if it's Holden Caulfield always says that. And so I do need to look that up so that I have more knowledge here. But it just seems like, you're a third of the way through the book. Why are you still saying, clarifying all of these things with, I mean? You know what I mean. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? All right. Page 48. Anyway, it meant getting up at 4:45 a.m. to be on the job at 5 a.m. And 16 hours later, my shift ended and I was $8 richer. I mean, know what I mean? Then down a little ways, one day Grandma took me in the frozen meat locker and said that when the owner gave Frosty an inch, he thought he'd become a ruler. Frosty, I mean. We know that. You know what I mean? And said that when the owner gave Frosty an inch, he thought he'd become a ruler. Frosty, I mean. Is there there? Is that a subtle hint? I mean, he's saying, hey, I'm telling you, I said this, and then I'm reiterating it for a reason, not for no reason. Page 49. He says at the top or the bottom of page 48, top of 49, I didn't have a clue about what that meant, but I noticed that no one was clapping. What that meant, getting fired. And then he says down towards the bottom, but he finally capitulated, saying that I had misapprehended what he meant by the phrase "get out," and reminded me that I was still hired and fine standing, and the dishes were piling up. Misapprehended what that meant, what he meant by the phrase "get out," all caps. I'll look at that as well. I mean, that's a meant, and so I wonder, I'll talk about it here, but I wonder if he's saying, if we're misapprehending the "get out" sign, maybe there's a "get out," but it's not for everybody. That's why it's 200 feet. You're misapprehending what it's saying. You have to read the fine print on a "stay out," on a "get out" sign. Maybe it says all non-fin searchers get out and stay out. And then it's like, but if you're a fin searcher, this is about 200 feet from the treasure chest, so come on in. And it's a little wooden sign, like Mr. Finn Principal. Probably not. I'm guessing that's not how that works. This is just my opinion, everyone. It's just my opinion. I can't believe you would think that that's really what it is out there. Silly, silly biddies. Some silly borderline biddies in this chase. All right. Top of page 60. Well, a couple lines down. Surely the rippling brooks would be grateful for our company, and the grizzlies would understand that we were just exploring the area and meant no harm. Page 61. I think he even compared my intelligence unfavorably with that of the two of us. The horse, I mean. Donnie Joe compared them. That just seems like a literary thing, The horse, I mean. He could have said it in a way that he even compared my intelligence unfavorably, with me and the horse. But he says, with the two of us. The horse, I mean. We're gonna find the treasure once COVID-19 quarantine is up and search season gets underway. But it's not going to be early in the search season. It's going to be at the end because I got to get my solve. And then I got to get out there. And then I got to pick it up. Can I be a rooster on my own channel, on my own episodes? Can I start becoming a rooster? Is that okay? Is that cool if I just start saying, oh, I've got the answer? I don't have the answer. But the fun thing is you get to see how my mind works, how I'm going through all of this and trying to be as unemotional as possible, as analytical as possible, going through and trying to find any aberration and then using my imagination. And every time I use my imagination, I get hammered. Y'all are like, stop using your imagination. You're silly. You're a silly biddy. All right, page 73. We're 2/3 of the way down. It's going to be a long video. It's going to be 30 plus minutes. Whoop, whoop. Buckle up, though. It's good. Page 73. Everyone knew that she was too good for me, but tenacity was never one of my shortcomings, if you know what I mean. I mean, you know what I mean. You know what I mean? I know what you mean, Forrest. You're a tenacity kind of guy. Tenacious. Tenacious D. That's a band, by the way. It's a group, just in case you were thinking something totally different. I realized that when I said that. If you didn't know that was a band, look it up. It's a band. I promise. Page 96. A couple mentions here. So I guess it's really the bottom of page 95. I didn't know enough about what had happened to even speak of, much less understand what I was feeling and what it could possibly mean, if anything. And this is when he starts trying to, figure everything out. And then you go down and he says, he's asking those questions. Why did the strange clearing mean so much to me? And, I wonder if that is just a kind of I don't know if that plays an important role or not, or is it a clearing? Is there a strange clearing in the woods? Or is that just, everybody's looking for a clearing and it's really not in a clearing? It's a misdirection. Is that one of those 15 seconds, 15%? All right. Anybody else have any coronavirus quarantine, get in shape challenge goals? Yeah. I started mine today. So trying to drink more water. All right. Page 97. When I inhaled, the gauge winked, meaning I was getting oxygen through my mask. Okay. Cool. Then down, he says, that meant check the blink and good luck. So I checked the blink. So I don't know that there's anything there. He's just telling a story. And that's what those signs meant, symbols meant, whatever, hand signals, hand gestures. All right, page 98. Down towards the bottom. So, is there a deeper meaning to it all? I think there is a deeper meaning to it all. Not only to his experiences in my war for me, but to the chase. So I'll let you read the rest of that. That's page 98. Page 101. He says, there are others who have said the same thing, perhaps less eloquently, but just as meaningfully, such as Andy Warhol, who certainly had his 15 minutes of fame. Andy Warhol is also the person who, or one of the people that he has said, was that it doesn't matter who you are, it matters who they think you are. And so I think there's something here as well. And I love that. I love that poem, or whatever you want to call that. Those words, the moving finger writes. I think that's really, really interesting, really neat. I always think about it. I think it has something to do with where the treasure's hidden. Maybe not, but at least it has made me. It's enriched my life to have read that and to think it's really deep. That it's 800 years old or 900 years old or something. Page 102. Only about 6 or 7 more quotes. Where are we? Oh, both of them and a multitude of others have conveyed the same meaning in vastly different ways and at vastly different times and places. But they all really said the same thing. Look at me. I'm somebody. Please don't forget. And I think that's key to this. I really do. I've said it in a number of videos, but I think that meaning, the deeper meaning, these are meaningful words. I think there's there's something deep. And that's sort of, you got to use your imagination. But I do think there's an education, learning experience, life. It's not just about a treasure. It's that Indiana Jones, you stay humble and there's this journey and this quest and this adventure, and you go after it with the right frame of mind, not a greedy frame of mind. I just need to find this treasure chest. There's a kind of like a journey that your soul needs to take in the thrill of the chase that I think Forrest wants us to go on. And that's how we find the treasure chest. Because we'll be changed. If that made any sense. All right, page 113. Oh, page 112. Ha ha. Okay. So he's talking about the George Washington, and he says that about halfway down, I explained who Washington was and who the British were and what the 4th of July meant, what happened during the Revolutionary War, and that Gilbert Stuart had also painted the portrait of George Washington that's on the $1 bill, and what the 4th of July meant. I mean, it means freedom, and we know that making plans is antagonistic to freedom. So I think there's something. I think there's a there. Just a small subtle hint. Freedom, Braveheart. Maybe the answer's in Braveheart. Mel Gibson. Did I channel my inner Davio there? Did you see how I got there? Mel Gibson. Jesus. What was his? What was that movie? Something. I don't know. All right, I could really get off on that. Maybe I'll just do a video like that where I just go crazy with all my imagination. Would y'all like that? Put that in the comments if you're still watching 28 minutes in. Yeah, buddy. All right, page 113. We got to end this up. He says that he loved that comment, right? He's talking about the I love that comment and explained to the class that art is not meant to be worshipped. It's not meant to be worshipped, but instead it should be treated as one would treat a friend. Humans possess 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing. What do you think? Maybe the treasure chest is the art, right? And it's not meant to be worshipped, but instead it should be treated as one would treat a friend. Would that change how you search? Would that change your search area? I bet if you're in the fire hole in the Madison and Yellowstone, it doesn't. You'd be like, exactly, that's what I'm talking about. An old friend fly fishing down the river. Not what I'm talking about. Confirmation bias. I'm just messing. Okay, page 121. We got 4 more quotes. We'll be out of here in a couple minutes. Page 121. He says, somewhere. Oh, yeah. He says, but every time we've come to a fork in the road, we've taken it together, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? Why does he always come back and say, if you know what I mean? I mean this, I mean that. All he has to say is, but every time we've come to a fork in the road, we've taken it together. We always use the, if you know what I mean. You think there's a fork in the road, in the path, and there's a sign that says, no trespassing, get out, or something, and so everybody keeps going down the path, and you really have to go across it? Or maybe not a sign. There's a fork in the road, but maybe there's barbed wire or something. Or a slide. A bluff. I don't know. I think that's interesting. I question. Who am I to question? I'm a nobody. I'm just a house husband. All right, page 128. He says, I knew all of the good tricks, and one was to tie only square knots so they wouldn't slip. Square knots do slip. But he says, I knew all of the good tricks. Do we need to know all of the good tricks to find the treasure? To figure out the clues? And what was tying only square knots so they wouldn't slip? Do you need to tie knots to the clues and between the clues? Do you need to, are we going on some sort of square route? I like the ball of string story. All right, page 137. Bronze is a non-ferrous metal, meaning it won't rust or deteriorate in any way. Thanks. I don't know. That doesn't. Other things about that part in the book, stand out to me, but that not necessarily. All right, last one, page 143. Today I live my life with renewed meaning, but always with the awareness that some insidious strain might again sneak into my body. With renewed meaning. What do you think Forrest's renewed meaning is? It's all about the thrill of the chase. Putting things out there for us. Writing a lot more words. Giving us words. Trying to, maybe he's saying, hey, I want to do something, good. Spend my waning years in spreading positivity and getting people out. Do you think figuring out what that renewed meaning is has anything to do with finding the chest? Figuring out the clues in the poem? I don't know. This is a long video, I know. Thanks for sticking in there to the end with me. This is all about clarifications and a couple of tricks thrown in there. 2 mentions of trick. And, I'm just putting it out there because I want to cover all of my bases before I start a secondary analysis and start trying to come up with a solve. People keep asking, hey, have you come up with a solve? Are you working on a solve? And the long answer is yes, I'm working on a solve, but you're coming along this journey with me by looking at all of these different themes and keywords and just going over the book and over the book and over the book and over the book and going back to the poem and looking at the book and going back to the poem and looking at the book. And I'm just recording it and sharing it with everyone. And so my whole plan all along was to focus on this, even though it has taken months, and then come up with a solve, as I go through a secondary analysis, and then say, okay, what sticks out? Is there anything else that sticks out? And then maybe a tertiary, and keep going and say, how many analyses do I need to do? And then can I boil something down to a specific where warm water salt and, a canyon, etc., etc., etc. So, as always, thanks so much for watching this episode of the House Husband Diaries. I always say, if you want to come on, you can email me, Carter@hhdiaries.com. yeah, if you don't want to come on, or you just want to, email me, talk, Forrest Fenn stuff, then I'm always happy. That's why I say my email. And, you can always leave comments, like, subscribe, what have you. But thanks again for watching this episode of the House Husband Diaries. Hope you're having a great day. I hope you continue to have a great day.